The time has come to become one by combining our wisdom and skills to resolve the division and conflicts we have created. We dedicate our efforts to peace and to pave the way for a world of happiness for all. Citizens from all over the world have come together to make the Korean Peninsula one of the only remaining divided countries on the planet a true haven of peace. Despite the COVID-19 pandemic that brought the world to a standstill, the constant challenge to seek a path of peace held desired by all has continued unabated. In a world where politics is based on self-centered nationalism and nations only prioritize the interests of their citizens, leaders have shown solidarity to explore the path to a world of coexistence and harmony. It was for this that prominent world figures gathered for the Summit for Peace on the Korean Peninsula.
Respected current and former heads of states and peace-loving leaders. Today, the coronavirus pandemic has caused serious damage and loss across the world, leaving its mark on all sectors of society, including politics, the economy, health, and welfare. And we've also seen how national self-interest has resulted in more conflict and division rather than harmony and interdependence. And in particular, we see today how the diverse problems that have arisen around the Korean Peninsula as a result of competition between global powers for dominance in the Pacific Rim have emerged as important issues that can affect not only Northeast Asia but also the world at large. Dr. Hak Ja-han-moon, the co-founder of the Universal Peace Foundation, has emphasized that the fundamental answer to heal the conflicts and divisions that have prevailed not only on the Korean Peninsula but across the world is to recognize God, the original parent of humankind, and to live with Him as our heavenly parent and realize the ideal of one big human family under God, advocating for the vision of a heavenly unified Korea and a heavenly unified world.
At the opening ceremony, the co-chair of the organizing committee and the Prime Minister of Cambodia, His Excellency Hun Sen, delivered a speech to extend a warm welcome to the participants. At the headquarters of the Korean National Assembly, Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, sent a congratulatory message. In their speeches, world leaders such as Mike Pence, former Vice President of the United States, and Steve Harper, former Prime Minister of Canada, expressed their hope for a world of interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universal values. The opening ceremony was held simultaneously at the Lotte Hotel, the headquarters of the Korean National Assembly, and in Japan, where political authorities participated in efforts to chart a path to peace. The opening artistic performance of the summit was entitled Land of Blessing, Land of Division, and Land of Peace. It was held simultaneously at the HJ Global Arts Center and the Lotte Hotel and was attended by world leaders and distinguished guests. It was a moving performance that highlighted our efforts for peace in this new era. On the second day, the Fifth SONAC Peace Prize Award ceremony was held, which recognizes works aimed at achieving a peaceful world. The new president of the SONAC Peace Prize Awarding Committee, Jose Manuel Barroso, gave the welcoming speech highlighting the theme of the 5th edition.
The SONAC Peace Prize was founded at the behest of Dr. Hak Ja-han-moon, the wife of the late Reverend Dr. Sun Myung Moon, to honor and preserve their ideals, legacy, and achievements. In selecting this year's laureates, the SONAC Peace Prize Committee, which I have the honor to chair, focused on the response to the pandemic.
This edition highlighted actions in response to the global COVID-19 pandemic. Thus selected as co-recipient based on Law for Humanity were Professor Sarah Gilbert, a renowned scientist who developed a vaccine against the coronavirus, and Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, which has made tireless efforts to provide vaccines at lower cost in underdeveloped countries. The Founders Special Award went to Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Sen for his actions to promote peace in the Pacific region and his efforts towards a peaceful process of the Korean Peninsula. In addition, a special award was also given to him in recognition of his dedication for the success of the Peace Summit. Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, then extended his congratulations to the awardees. After that, Dr. Yoon Yong-ho presented a book entitled Prime Minister Hun Sen's Vision and Thoughts for Cambodia, published with the support of the Asian Cultural Commission, the Asian Vision Institute, and UPF, congratulating the Cambodian Prime Minister on the release of his autobiography. The positive influence of the Sonak Peace Prize for Future Generations continues to spread, and it's contributing to establishing a world of peace. On the 13th of February, former and current heads of state and government from the 157 countries diplomatically linked to the two Koreas and experts from the political, economic, media, and academic sectors attended the Peace Summit, which supported the peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. The event started with an entrance under the honors of the distinguished leaders present in the hall. Ban Ki-moon, former president of the United Nations and co-chair of the summit organizing committee, delivered welcoming remarks sharing his wish to see a world of peace.
We work together with wisdom, sincerity, and resolve. I do believe we can illuminate the path to peace both on the Korean Peninsula and beyond.
In their congratulatory messages, Korean and foreign leaders wished the summit every success and shared their hope and ardent desire to work together for the reunification of the Korean Peninsula.
Please join me in working, striving, and praying for a Korea that is safe, prosperous, flourishing, united, and finally at peace. They are great people. They are brilliant people. They are loving people. We want to help.
The Nigerian government encourages and supports every effort to promote understanding and a commitment to peace among the governments and people of both Koreas, and has for a long time maintained relations with them at ambassadorial level. We have enjoyed cordial relations with both Koreas in trade and commerce, education, cultural exchange, and technology transfer. And so, when it comes to what needs to be done to ensure lasting peace on the peninsula, we are happy to be part of it. All countries have one crisis or the other that they are dealing with. What is important is the commitment to arrive at a true and lasting peace through the most peaceful process. On the world stage, such initiative as the establishment of an international think tank on peace on the Korean Peninsula by the Universal Peace Federation is a highly welcome development. We are open to continuous partnerships with both local and international organizations, such as the Universal Peace Federation, to achieve lasting peace in the world. I am optimistic that if we prioritize mutual cooperation and peaceful coexistence, the growth and prosperity of humanity is assured. Let us all join in the efforts and commit to achieving a just and peaceful world based on these principles.
I thank you once again, Honorable Dr. Hak Cha Han Moon and all members of your federation for the time and considerable efforts that you continue to devote to the safeguarding of our common humanity. This future is conditioned by our choices, from the most obscure to the most enlightened. There is the obscure choice of war that consecrates the triumph of violence over peace, of death over life. There is the enlightened choice of peace, which germinates with wisdom and guides action toward progress and human fraternity. As laureate of the SONAC Peace Prize, I join you in the enlightened choice of peace.
It is my fervent hope and prayer that soon there will be a reunification of Korea. Allow me to express my gratitude to the creator of the Universal Peace Federation, Dr. Hak Ja Han Moon, who is a courageous champion for peace through interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universal values. I believe the Universal Peace Federation stands in a central position to help resolve the crisis on the Korean Peninsula.
A convivência pacífica entre os
The
povos
peaceful
e entre
coexistence
pessoas
between peoples
individualmente consideradas
and between people individually considered is a universal good, because we know from the teachings of history that peace is an essential critical condition for man and society to realize and develop fully. I wish, therefore, on behalf of the people of Sao Tome and Principe and on my own, congratulate Dr. Hak Cha Han Moon for the spirit of mission that has marked so indelibly her commitment, her cry audible in all latitudes for universal peace, and for the peaceful unification of their brothers of the two Koreas.
Our dear Mother Moon, the mother of peace, it is a time to reflect on the vision of peace, reconciliation, and harmonious coexistence, which Reverend Moon lived and pursued with vigor. I urge the leaders of Korea to be open to continuous partnership with both local and international organizations in order to achieve lasting peace in the peninsula and the world. Let the healing of the world begin with the reunification of the Korean Peninsula. Once again, to all world leaders, let us reflect on the vision of Reverend Song Myung Moon and promote policies, programs, and initiatives that will bring peace and harmony to our world.
Distinguished guests, Dr. Hak Cha Han Moon has always said that peace on the Korean Peninsula is intimately linked to world peace. She has never separated the reconciliation between the two Koreas from the struggle to bring the world to live in peace. I am convinced that during this February meeting in Seoul, the proposals that will be made will allow for rapid, progressive, and concrete solutions, and above all, that these solutions can also be used to resolve other conflicts throughout the world, and a world that we all want, a world of peace, as UPF aspires to, a world where it is good to live in, a world where all conflicts must be resolved peacefully through discussion and negotiation. Today we'll be seeing the gala show, the highlights of that special performance. So let us welcome the special performance troupe with a big round of applause, everyone.
태초에 하늘이 열려 해가 뜨고 달이 뜨네 눈부신 빛에 온기 가득한 아름다운 우리 세상 푸르른 산과 들판에 꽃이 피고 새가 날아 온 세상 생명 소리 가득한 아름다운 우리 세상 동방의 작은 땅 한반도는 조용한 아침의 나라 너와 나 모두 하나 되어 행복하게 살고파
Nella fantasia io vedo un mondo giusto, lì tutti vivono in pace e onestà. Io sogno d'anime che sono sempre libere, come le nuvole che volano, niente male vita. Il fondo nella fantasia esiste un vento caldo che soffia sulle città come amico. Io sogno d'anime che sogno sempre libere, come le nuvole
Former Prime Minister of Japan Shinzo Abe and other speeches alluded to the principles of interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universal values. In his address, Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Sen prayed for the peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula, revealing the wisdom Cambodia has gained after suffering the throes of war for the past 30 years.
Excellency, Head of State and Government, Honorable Dr. Hakcha Hanmun, co-founder of the Universal Peace Federation, Excellencies, Madam, ladies and gentlemen. It has been 72 years since the Korean War started and 69 years since the signing of the Armistice Agreement between the two Koreas. Throughout all these past decades, peace efforts have been promoted at various levels and on different platforms. Unfortunately, to no avail. Peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula remain elusive and fragile as previous approaches were not successful. That is why we need to be bolder now and explore innovative ways that can yield positive outcomes. In my view, peace and security in Asia-Pacific region and the world at large cannot be decoupled from the peace and security in the Korean Peninsula and vice versa, for the mere reason that our world is so interconnected and intertwined. We need to acknowledge that mutual prosperities and greater independence are the foundation of peace and security, and that our socio-economic lifeline are bound to coexist through this all-inclusive and open international order, which embraces the two Koreas. Geographically speaking, the Korean Peninsula is a key gateway to Asia, not just in terms of great civilization, but also in terms of economic opportunity. Rather than view it as merely a buffer zone in great power politics, it should be appreciated as a bridge of trust and a land of opportunities for all. The Korean people are innovative, dynamic, hardworking, and they can contribute greatly to the world economy. Once peace prevails, all these potential are there for the region and the world to grasp. To this end, the responsibility falls upon the international communities to work together to get the two Koreas out of the remnant of the Cold War. We all know that a divided Korean Peninsula is the legacy of the Cold War, and Koreans are the victim of great power politics. Unfortunately, great powers selfishly use the Korean Peninsula as their buffer zone in their power competition and projection. To seek peace on the Korean Peninsula, we need to be mindful of the following. First, overcoming 70 years of animosities and distrust will require many years of negotiations and confidence-building measures, and of course, gradual reconciliation process. Similarly, the denuclearization process will have to unfold in phases. Strategic patience, therefore, is of utmost importance. Second, Pressure alone would not effectively address the deeply rooted cause of conflict, nor would it resolve decades-long of complex issues. A robust and comprehensive diplomatic engagement is a prerequisite. A positive engagement with Pyongyang would reduce the risk of further isolation, which in turn lead to a de-escalation of the vicious circle of military tension and ultimately a tuning down of its nuclear ambitions. Third, building the trust momentum necessitates constant pragmatic engagement from the peace negotiators, who should focus on targeting low-hanging fruit efforts that are less controversial, less sensitive, and more practical. Excellency, Madam, ladies and gentlemen, the Cambodian people have felt the pain of war as we went through 3 decades of civil war, instigated mainly by foreign intervention. We too are the victim of the Cold War and great power politics. Learning from our past experience, we can only rely on ourselves to protect our national interests and to seek peace for our people. National reconciliation must come from within, with national ownership and determining and defining factors. We have learned that nothing is more valuable than independence and self-determination. Based on our hard-earned experiences and lessons learned in peace building and national reconciliation, I would like to propose the 2-state toward one nation, one peninsula, one people, one culture initiative for your consideration. Why 2 states? The political system and governance system in North Korea and South Korea are completely different. Therefore, we need to accept the fact that the 2 political systems will have to continue to coexist in parallel. Peaceful coexistence between the 2 political regimes must be encouraged and promoted. Why one nation? Korea can be divided by the land, but not people. Korea has a unified bloodline. A Cambodian adage goes like this: we cannot cut the bloodline, we cannot cut the water. The people are like water, they cannot be cut. In the same way, culture is a critical source for peace and reunification. The Korean desire for reunification is based on a long and proud history of unity that saw Korea develop into a culturally, ethnically harmonious country with a deep sense of national identity and unity. I believe the 2 states toward one nation, one peninsula, one people, one culture initiative is practical and achievable because it is aimed at promoting cultural exchanges and people-to-people ties between the 2 Koreas. It is a low-hanging fruit that we can easily pick. This initiative was inspired by the Universal Peace Federation mission of promoting shared value, mutual prosperities, and interdependence, as well as the shared principle of fostering mutual respect mutual understanding, mutual trust, mutual interest for peace and prosperity. To that effect, I would like to propose some practical steps for your consideration as follows. First, we should transform the militarized zone into a safe and open cultural corridor connecting the two people. The demilitarized zone can offer platform for joint cultural performance, art exhibition, and other cultural exchanges. Second, the two Koreas should further cooperate under the framework of UNESCO to create the necessary condition for dialogue based upon the respect for commonly shared value. The preamble to the Constitution of the UNESCO should inspire us, and I quote, "Since wars begin in the mind of man, it is in the mind of man that the fence of peace must be constructed." Unquoted. Third, the two Koreas should work together to advance the Korean culture, connect the Korean civilization with other civilizations, and jointly develop a culture-based tourism and innovation. Let's say, food diplomacy, for instance, can be jointly promoted by the two Koreas. To conclude, I call upon leaders from different sectors to give input on the two states toward one nation, one peninsula, one people, one culture initiative, so that we can translate this concept into practical, achievable, and concrete action. While praying for a long-lasting peace and stability for the Korean Peninsula, I wish all distinguished delegates here present today at this World Summit 2022 with good health, happiness, and all the success in your respective endeavor. I thank you for your kind attention.
In her special message, Dr. Hak Ja Han-moon, co-founder of UPF, revealed the vision of a heavily unified Korea and called on everyone to work together for the reunification of the Korean Peninsula.
I thank all the leaders from around the world who have gathered in support for the peaceful unification of the North and South Korea. Your commitment, your devotion, thanks to your devotion, I am sure that this will definitely come true. Thank you so much. Today, we see around the world a lot of difficulties taking place. And on Earth, there are about 200 or so countries worldwide. And yet, there are hopes, though everyone hopes. Everyone has sought and looked for a world of peace. But despite their hopes for a world of peace, we see more and more war and conflicts. This has been the history of human history until now. Originally, the owner and creator of this world, our God created the heavens and the earth, and He created a man and a woman, Adam and Eve, as the first ancestors of humanity. And then the first man and woman had to go through a process of growth. He waited for them to grow to maturity. However, unfortunately, they could not grow to maturity, and this resulted in a world that has been disattached, disconnected from God. However, God, who is the Almighty and the Omnipotent, has the same beginning and the same end, and He must fulfill His will at all cost. So, in order to do that, it is essential for victorious human beings, that model beings, to emerge, beings that God has hoped for and looked for and wished to see, to be able to realize that kingdom of heaven on earth. Heaven, for the past 6,000 years, has been working hard to find his lost children. He has been such a parent looking for his lost children. And so to do so, to enable to find his lost children, he allowed religions to emerge based on the different cultural backgrounds, geographic backgrounds of each region, in order to enable man to pursue goodness within their respective areas and places. And it was amid such circumstances that God chose what we call the chosen people. He chose a people, a nation, and to be able to restore the mistake of the first human ancestor, to conduct a providence. He could not but conduct. God had to conduct the providence of restoration through indemnity to bring, to restore what was lost. So we cannot describe that excruciating, patience that God had to exercise to wait until the fruition of His will. For 4,000 years, God worked really, really hard to send His only Son, Jesus, the Son whom He could call His Son. But according to the principles of creation, it doesn't work only with God's Son. So, God needed a family, and the people of Israel needed to support God's Son. They had to create an environment upon which God's Son needed to work on. But that did not happen. And as a result, Jesus had to die on the cross and promise that He would return, and that He would return and conduct the marriage supper of the Lamb. But after that, Christianity, thanks through the apostles, Jesus' apostle, Christianity now has unfolded for the past 2,000 years, beginning from that point. But when we look at today's Christian environment or foundation, does it have a foundation that can receive the Messiah if He is to return? This is a question I would like to ask you. So when we look at humanity that has been disconnected to God, have we created that environment? The beginning of that environment is the birth of the model parent, all the true parents. And through that true parents will now people, and it's essential that all people be reborn through them so that they can become God's children, as God's children, to be reborn as God's children. So to disentangle the wrongly tangled of history, after 6,000 years of history, these true parents could be born on the Korean peninsula. In 1960, the true parents emerged. And then the true parents have been conducting the providence of rebirth, and that is what we call the blessing festival and the true family movement in order to make that happen. No matter who need to meet the true parents and must become God's children. So God's dream, our Creator's dream, was to be able to embrace all His children through the true parents. And He has dreamt of the kingdom of heaven on earth. And that work began in 1960. One more time, the owner of this universe, our Creator God, is our heavenly parent. There are a lot of global powers, there are many countries around the world, but only when they attend and live with God, when God is present within them, can those countries be qualified in front of God? So in creating this beautiful world, so that God can say, you have really done your best. This country is really a country that I will directly govern. So countries should be able to stand in such places in front of God, should be able to be praised by God in this way. So one more time, the religions around the world are reaching their destination. So at that destination, people have to come down. And then once they come down, they need to now be able to create an environment where they can live with God as their heavenly parent, become completely one with Him. That is the only way. And when we look at the Korean people, its history, Korea shares one culture, one lineage, one tradition. So this Korean, why did it have to be divided between the North and the South? It is the only country that has been divided since the Cold War times, since the Korean War. So only when these two countries unite, when these North and South Korea unite, can there be peace and stability as well in Northeast Asia and the world. Do you understand, everyone? We who live in this age today need to be able to become children who attend and live with their heavenly parent, who are connected to God directly. I have said this. All people around the world, only when they can stand in a position where they live with God as their parent, attending them as their parent, can there be a world of freedom, peace, unity, and happiness. When we're all one family, one big human family under God, can only then, when we attend God as a parent, can we become one big human family. So from that perspective, as the true parent that God has sent, I am asking all the people of North Korea and South Korea, will you, together with me, so that North and South Korea, which are brothers to one another, so that these two brotherly nations can become like one peninsula, and as sons and daughters of God, so that I am sure that a world of peace, like one big family, can really be achieved within our generation, within this time, centered on God, when all nations become connected as family. Until now, though, due to man's ignorance, this beautiful earth has been destroyed, and it is getting more serious in time as a result of climate change. We see sea levels rising, and in particular, we see all these natural disasters like rampaging different places across the world. Even last year alone, in North America, there were a lot of mountain fires, tornadoes, flooding. It caused so much damage. It caused so much losses. What about China? Let's look into China. What about Asia? Let's look in Asia. When we look at all the continents around the world, all continents actually suffered indescribable damage and loss of people because of all these natural disasters. And for the past 2 or so years, the corona pandemic took away a lot of lives. And so in the future, we do not know what we will be facing, what challenges that will hit us in the future. So this is the kind of reality where we stand on. So as a result, this is all happening because of our mistrust, because of our disbelief. So now as children of God who live and attend God as parents, as such children, let us all realize the dream of our parents on earth. As children who know the dream of our heaven, can we stand still and do nothing about our parents' dream? I hope that everyone and the world can become really one, so that we can really bring this earth to its original beautiful state. So let us all become people who fulfill their responsibility. So I'm calling to all people living with me in this age, let us all become such people. Today, many people from around the world have come here and given really good messages. Every one of you, I really pray that all your hopes be realized, and I am completely confident that they will come true. Yes, it can happen. All our hopes can happen. But the issue here is that we need to attend God as our heavenly plan. We need to be qualified as children of God, as people who have to take the responsibility to ensure future for our future generations. We need to become one, therefore, in order to create this world into a kingdom of heaven, where we can all live together as one family with God. If we could have realized that, what kind of world would that have been? Our God, the Creator, created everything, the heavens and the earth, and then He created the ancestors of human beings and asked them to have dominion over all things. So in an unfallen world, according to the principles of creation, the rules of creation those continue. This is, however, being destroyed by human beings, actually. Whenever spring comes, I look at the daffodil that blooms first from the frozen lands. So as a result of the fall of man, people have lived in so much pain, in so much suffering. So when I think of at the heart of God looking at His children living in so much pain and so much suffering, when I think of that heart, I always think of how I can comfort His heart. So when I look at the daffodil, I read that heart, that I can feel, I can sense. So even though right now God cannot completely exercise His power, but like I'm talking daffodil, even though it comes out of it's the very first flower that comes out of the frozen lands to announce the coming of the spring. So when I look at that daffodil, what I feel, I wonder if, in terms of me achieving the responsibilities given to me as the true parents, I have, received a lot of oppression, persecutions for the past 60 years, in carrying out these responsibilities, but I have never stopped. And because of that, I was able to meet all of you, everyone. Thank you so much. So all together, let us all, through meeting the true parents, let us all really become true children of our Heavenly Parent, and all together, let us realize God's dream on earth. Let us become such devoted sons and daughters, everyone. Thank you.
A miracle occurred at this summit, during which citizens of the world and 157 countries diplomatically linked to the two Koreas united in an effort to achieve peace and prosperity on the Korean peninsula, as well as to build a heavily unified Korea. Dr. Hak Ja-han Moon and the co-chairs of the organizing committee also presented the Seoul Declaration adopted at the 2022 World Summit, marking the beginning of the project for a heavily unified Korea and the second phase of the North Korean project.
Today, we have 85 heads of states will now take the signing of the Seoul Declaration. And the Seoul Declaration has the following contents. Current and former honorable heads of states, deputies, lawmakers, academics, businessmen, journalists who attend the Summit for Peace on the Korean Peninsula, held as part of the series of World Summit 2022, respect the spirit of the founder of the Universal Peace Foundation, led by the co-chair and the organizing committee to take all measures to ensure that the North and South, which have been divided since the war in 1950, aim for peaceful unification under the frame of one territory, one culture, and one nation. In addition, we'll do our best to realize a heavily unified Korea projects such as the Eurasia Tunnel and furthermore the Asia-Pacific Union adopted at the 2019 Asia-Pacific Summit in Phnom Penh to achieve mutual respect, mutual understanding, mutual trust, and mutual benefit for peace and prosperity. And we reaffirm the promotion of international order in accordance with the principles of the UN Charter and international law. Furthermore, the Think Tank 2022, a partnership committee composed of UPF organizations and other stakeholders, will be formed to formulate action plans for peace projects and other proposals that can be adopted to contribute to sustainable peace, prosperity, and progress on the Korean Peninsula elsewhere. February 13, 2022, at the World Summit 2022 held in Seoul, South Korea. This Seoul resolution is adopted as a declaration. Everyone now we'll hold the signing ceremony for the Seoul Resolution, which embraces the vision of one territory, one culture, and one nation, and one platform toward a heavenly unified Korea. So the Seoul Resolution signed by over 30 leaders from 157 countries with diplomatic ties to both the two Koreas will be signed by Dr. Hak Ja Moon, our founder, and by Prime Minister Samdech Hun Sen of the Kingdom of Cambodia, and His Excellency Ban Ki-moon, former Secretary General of the United Nations, the co-chairs of the organizing community. Please welcome them with a warm round of applause. They will come to the front of the stage, and they, as representatives on behalf of all leaders around the world, and here they will be signing the Seoul Resolution for peace on the Korean Peninsula. So again, the Seoul Resolution today will be sent back to the heads of 157 countries after today's summit, and I believe that the journey of the Summit for Peace on the Korean Peninsula will continue until the peaceful reconciliation of the Korean Peninsula is achieved. And now, the co-chairs and founder will be signing on the Seoul Resolution.
Everyone,
the Seoul Resolution has been adopted. Please let us celebrate this time with a warm round of applause. The journey towards the reconciliation and unification of Korea, it will continue. The journey will continue until we attain that reunification. This is not just one person's dream, but the dream of all the 157 countries with diplomatic ties with the two Koreas. And this journey will continue until we achieve it. Do you agree? If you do, everyone, do you? If you do, please send again another warm round of applause. It is now time to announce that the Seoul Resolution has been adopted in front of the world. So when I do a countdown, I would like to ask the three representatives on stage to click on the button. Are you ready, everyone? This is the last time, so let us all shout loud, everyone. Are you ready? So I'll count 1, 2, 3, and at the count of 3, our representatives simply need to press the button. So please shout together. Are you ready, everyone? Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. I am totally confident that the Korean Peninsula will be unified. Today, the Seoul Resolution, I hope, becomes a stepping stone towards the unification of the two Koreas, and that until it becomes a vision and a reality, we will continue to advance on and on. So we conclude the entire program of the Summit for Peace on the Korean Peninsula. Everyone, please let us conclude this summit with a warm round of applause. Thank you so much for your attendance and participation.